I'm Al Saleh.
And I'm Maccabees Mohajer, and this is the Doctor and the Devil's Advocate. And we're very, very happy and honored to have with us a special guest, Mr. Clifford McGee, who is an accomplished dancer, also a fantastic accomplished actor, writer, and producer. We're very glad that you're with us today, Cliff. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Can I call you Cliff?
Please do.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, Al trying to be funny again at the beginning of the program.
I'm not. I just wanted to see if I can call him Cliff. So, Cliff, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm a professional dancer for like 20 years almost. Toured with Beyonce, Neo, Christina Aguilera, all these different people. Transitioned. Usher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, worked with Usher a lot. Chris Brown, Janet Jackson. Transitioned into acting. I've been acting, writing, and producing the past,
Good, fantastic.
chunk of my
Now,
life.
are crescent kicks part of your routine at all?
I've never done a crescent kick ever. They do exist.
Yes. After the show, I'm going to hit him in the face with a crescent kick. You can see it.
I would love to see
I
that.
have a crescent wrench.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. But today, Clifford is not here to talk about any of the stuff that obviously he's doing. We can touch on him a little bit later. He's here to talk about some very important subjects and topics that we've been facing in this country for many years now, which is racism in America. Does it still exist? The Black Lives Matter movement and the misconceptions that people have of that movement, and also police brutality.
So let me ask you first. Do Black Lives Matter make it?
Absolutely. I believe every life matters. Every life matters.
Now, Cliff, is that possible? Can all lives matter and Black Lives Matter equally? Or is it just one or the other?
Well, they all matter. They should all matter, which
Well-
is the point of the movement that Black Lives Matters, because in society, a lot of times, it appears that they don't. And the laws also are disproportionately to where they don't.
So if you have both sitting in front of you, doesn't one encompass the other? If all lives matter, by logic, does that not mean that Black lives also matter?
Of course it does. But the problem is that in this country, it's been proven that black lives don't matter as much as white lives.
Okay,
And
well,
this is
that's what I
something-
want to get to.
Well,
Is
obviously,
is that real? Is
Okay.
that something that we can actually point to?
as
Are
real as
there-
us breathing right now.
Okay, but
Very
are there laws that specifically target people who have black skin? Are there those laws? And what are those laws?
No, but here's the problem. That's even worse than if there were laws that particularly...
Well, there used to be.
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is if there were laws that straight out singled out black folk, okay, black people, African American people, however politically correct statement you want to use, it would be easier for us to understand what to do.
Okay.
But because those laws do not matter
Fair enough.
and everything is under the skin and is very well hidden, you cannot scream out that, look, example A, example B. You can only talk about all the things that have happened to individuals of the black race.
And to that point, also, what makes a lot of sense is what Trevor Noah says a lot about with apartheid. The government had to apologize and admit what they did. Here in the United States, there's never been an admittance. To this day, you will still have people argue. Politicians will still argue you down that racism does not exist.
Exactly.
The laws are not, the police aren't targeting certain neighborhoods and certain minorities for certain laws and prosecuting them in ways that they would never do for someone that was white.
Absolutely.
So is there more discrimination specifically against blacks, or is it equal among all minorities? Anyone who's just essentially not white skinned?
I think that's a very good point. It's a very good question that you bring up. I believe lately there has been now a segue, okay? Not a segue away, even though it says segue, but basically there is an sort of a encompassing of this prejudice towards Middle Eastern individuals, okay? So the black people are still there, okay? The Hispanics are still there. And I can go to specific things that I've seen in my life, okay, that I can talk to you about. And I'm sure Clifford has a plethora of things he can talk about. But now, the Middle Eastern look, i.e. foolish beard, okay, looking Middle Eastern, okay, is now being targeted also by police forces. And again, it all depends on what area you're in. In South Central, there is, believe it or not, there is less, okay, than in Beverly Hills. If you're a black man at 10 o'clock at night, okay, walking down Cannon Drive where the restaurants are, you're okay. But if you cross Santa Monica Boulevard into what they call Beverly Hills Flat, where those homes are, and you're a black guy at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, unless you're wearing something extraordinary and, got floss and watch, and even then you might get pulled over and, okay, he's cool. You're going to get stopped.
Yeah.
You're going to be asked, what are you doing here? You're going to be asked that question. What are you doing here, even though it's a public street?
Well, they've now just detained Muhammad Ali Jr. now twice at 2 different airports and questioned him for a very long time. And now the question is, why has he been held? And he's got, a couple of things. He has the Muslim.
Yeah, he's a double
side,
whammy.
yeah,
He's black
and
and
he's
he's
got the
Muslim.
black.
Yeah, he's
So it's under, two layers of microscope.
exactly.
Yeah. So in that case, that goes to the point that there are, in fact, profiling
Absolutely.
purviews within the law, because a lot of the direction, for example, that THS gets and DHS gets and a lot of our security forces is based on statistics and probability. We look at what kind of groups are prone to commit what kind of crimes, and by having that supposed non-random selection, they're able to pinpoint, for example, likelier perpetrators of crime, which in effect may at some point, I don't know if it has been statistically proven to be good, but as far as they are concerned, that's how they're moving forward. It is, I believe, an unfortunate circumstance that is perhaps unconstitutional. However, as
When
long
has
as
that ever stopped them before?
right,
Never has.
as long as it's moving forward, it's something that's going to have to be challenged.
Exactly.
How do we challenge it?
Well, before we get that, Clifford, talk a little bit about your experiences growing up. You grew up in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what did you face? What did you deal with in that city in regards to these things we're talking about?
Well, interestingly enough, all my experiences with police in that neighborhood were good. Really, really good. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the police officers of that neighborhood were from that neighborhood.
There you go.
That definitely plays a big part.
Exactly.
I never had, in St. Louis, a white cop from Beverly Hills that came there and pulled me over and treat me like I don't belong there.
It's another FUBU.
It was for us by us. The cops
Exactly.
were for us by us. They had,
Exactly.
and also there were different programs back then. I played in like a police basketball league. The police knew you. They knew your mother. They knew your brother. They knew your father. I've gotten pulled over in the car, braids 5 deep in the car. We got weed in the car.
What's 5 deep mean?
That
5
means 5
people in the
people.
car.
Oh.
I think, yeah, street scholar. They pull you over. You 5 deep in the car. Y'all got weed. We learned early. Be honest. Yes, sir. We have weed. How much y'all got? We got like a dime bag. Thought we was doing something. That's $10 worth of weed,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So we got a dime bag worth of weed.
How many ounces is that?
I just, it's just 10. It's like a small,
It's
small
Because there's a
bag.
certain
It's
amount
around
that is
2
a
ounces.
felony, a
It's
certain
about-
amount that's
yeah,
a
8.
misdemeanor.
Over 8, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Because I want to
But
see how, if the cop's letting you go, what's he letting you go on?
well, here's the thing. That's a different.
He's not going reverse because
Yeah.
he was black. You're black. You have
Yeah.
a dime bag. He's letting you go.
He's letting us go. The thing is, had that been a white cop, 9 times out of 10, we would have been in jail.
Exactly.
We would have been in jail. And also, he knew who we
You
were.
were
We
not
knew we were good
troublemakers.
guys. We weren't troublemakers.
Wait.
But to someone else, we would appear to be that.
But
We
if
look like
that's-
thugs in the car.
But if you're breaking the law, and I'm assuming this was a while ago, especially before a lot of these states started to go over
Yeah.
the ballot. And I don't believe that Missouri is one of them. Technically, you did break the law.
And
So-
technically, you're saying he should have been detained.
Well,
and arrested.
shouldn't you have? Don't you believe that if the law, and I find it ironic that
It's
if we're
an
talking
interesting
about
point.
if we're talking about everyone should be treated fairly, including blacks
Yes.
and Muslims, then shouldn't you be treated fairly by being prosecuted and being detained?
I would have to disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. Here's the thing. You have a problem in these neighborhoods, okay, where everybody smokes weed. And one of the things we're going to argue, and I always say this, granted, yes, the law is the law, but 100 years from now, 50 years from now, our grandkids are going to look at us and say it was the stupidest thing ever that people went to jail for marijuana. Period, point blank. Now, technically, yeah, it was against the law to probably have a dime bag worth of weed.
Yes.
Speaking from someone who is not from that area, you don't understand everything else that those kids
Could be doing.
or
They
could be going
jacking
through.
people.
But if we're coming from school,
yeah,
we're getting a dime bag of weed to go home,
and do weed, it's okay.
go home. Because I guarantee you that day at least 3
Yeah.
people were shot.
Exactly.
So you got to pick and choose your battles. Now,
That's exactly it.
that's another thing. A lot of people are so, and I'm not the kind of person. First of all, I got locked up one time, which I shouldn't have been, for a ticket 5 years down the line that I didn't know I hadn't paid. The officer locked me up. I was in jail. All he had to do was tell me I would have paid it. What happened? I ended up being late on my rent. late on my car note because he followed the law to the T like that. And I'm not saying give leniencies for the law, but a lot of times you do more harm than good to someone. Because if I was in the mind state of the people, like where I was from, I might have went out and done something wrong to get that money back. You know, so that's the thing, and it's not an excuse. But back to the point, my experiences in St. Louis were good because the people from there. Now, granted, had I been out there, they caught a gun in the car, you best believe I would have been locked up. Had I had a pound of weed in the car, we all would have been in jail. But a dime bag, $10 worth of weed,
and dime bag that they told the police they had.
were honest.
See, that's the key. I think that's probably shocked the police. And why are you smirking?
I laugh because one of the laws is that if you're carrying a firearm,
okay,
which some people are permitted to carry both concealed or unconcealed
Yes.
firearms, the law states that as soon as a police officer pulls you over,
you have to tell them
immediately.
Yes.
Have to announce
exactly.
Yes.
that
I
you're
have a
carrying it
weapon.
and
Yes.
disclose.
Yes.
Didn't work
But
with Philando Castillo, though, but go ahead.
Yeah.
But in some neighborhoods, it's equivalent with the dime bag. It's like, sir, I must disclose that I do have, this dime bag.
Go ahead.
No, please.
It works the same way, but back to my experiences with police. I had two experiences out here different in LA. Once I had a Cadillac. I still had my braids. It was an old school 94 Cadillac. Eldorado, had rims on it. I was looking like a thug.
Rolling
Driving
6'4".
Yeah, exactly. Cruising down the street in my 6'4", right?
That's all them. I
Yeah.
can't say that. Say.
Yeah. So I'm driving. I get pulled over, right?
6'4"?
It's a
Don't worry, man.
Okay.
It's
We'll tell
gonna
you
take
later.
like
Yeah.
4 shows
Yeah.
to explain.
We'll
to
tell them
everybody.
later. So we're driving and like a cop pulls me over. Okay, and he's like, "Where you going?" This is when I was doing music. I was also signed to Clive Davis for a while with music.
Oh, Clive.
And he was like,
He came out of the closet.
did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew it when I saw him.
Oh,
but
I'm
anyway.
sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but
Yeah.
maybe he hasn't come out
He
yet. but
came
yeah.
out to you specifically.
No, not at all. To someone that I know said that he likes young boys. I said, really? He said, yeah. So I'm sorry, Clyde. I mean, hold on. Let me say. But it's my opinion. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
So
You
I'm
and
driving.
Oh.
I get pulled over, right? And officer lets me go. I say, "Hey, I'm going to the studio. It's literally 3 blocks down, 3 blocks down." He lets me go. I drive a block and a half. Another police officer pulls me over and threatens
Simply
to-
because of the way you look.
Simply
By that
because of the
time,
car I
yeah.
had in that neighborhood. If you know, in Burbank, California, they've had
Yeah.
lawsuits for them years ago. It
Yeah.
seems a lot better now because I still live over there. A lot better now where the racism has gone down. But they had a lot of lawsuits against them and complaints. That made no sense. Another time I got pulled over, didn't have my insurance. The first thing I said to the officer, "Look, sir, I don't have my insurance. I'm going to pick my daughter up from school. I just want to let you know that, and I know I shouldn't be driving." Same thing happened. "Thank you for being honest." He said, "You have no clue." This was a white cop. "You have no clue how many people lie, and we would be here forever." So I think honesty plays a lot of part in it. Granted, yeah, I should have had insurance.
But I think, but I think you've had good experiences.
I have.
And
I can't complain.
honesty does play a part. But I think that in other scenarios,
It sucks.
regardless of how honest the people were,
Doesn't matter.
those people would have been negative. But I think more important than anything else is the point that you brought up, that if you are from a neighborhood, usually you're not going to get bothered by the police in your neighborhood because they understand that's their beat.
Look, that's not true. In so many of the cities that we see are burning down because people are angry over the fact that there's been police brutality.
Not in that. No. Those.
Every city, generally speaking, has people that apply to the police departments, generally from those areas, because people don't want to drive a long way to work. It's not like the guy's going to drive 3 hours to come to work at his police. Those people, generally speaking, live in that same metropolitan area.
Okay.
So I think that argument, generally speaking, although it may seem interesting, the whole FUBU concept, is common sense. Generally speaking, that's what happens. I think what has
I'm glad
what
you're pointing
has
out the obvious
changed.
then.
What has changed is as the civil rights movement has progressed, our employment quotas have also progressed, we start to see more openings for people of color on those police forces. So by default, you're going to see the
But that wasn't the point that I was making. The
Okay.
point that I was making was that the police that are in that neighborhood, regardless of the color of the skin, work with those individuals on a regular basis. So there isn't much of that stuff happening. The prejudices and the racism and the bothering takes place out of those areas.
I see.
Okay, you don't. I mean, there's stuff probably happening in Compton we don't hear about because nobody covers that anyways. But the bottom line is when something happens in an area that's more affluent, that people question the police. For example, are these people supposed to be here? And just even the way we're verbalizing, are these people as if they're different supposed to be here? So of course they can be here, but they're not. They're not allowed per se, not by any law, but by the misperception. Now. Let's look at the.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
get a word here? I just want to just bring in a little bit of research to back one more of an offensive statement that I want to make. If offensive statement perhaps is if you don't want to be treated like a gangster, don't dress like one. Don't look like one. Don't dress the costume of one. And let me back this up with some research so that I can explain where I'm coming from. There's a concept in psychology called modeling. When a child is growing up, essentially new to the world, tabula rasa, looks at the world, doesn't know good or bad, black or white, whatever the circumstances for difference is, sees a cat, and you tell, it says, what's that? You say, okay, it's a cat because of this characteristic that you're looking at. The same day sees a dog, it looks at the dog and says, cat. The reason is because it sees something furry, walking on four paws, which essentially was similar to the last thing that it saw, and it creates that kind of a concept. That modeling concept doesn't change as we grow older. It's simply a dictionary that we start to feed with more entries. So once we look to see what a gangster looks like, we identify it, we know what gangsters do, we know the kind of things that they're capable of, so we approach them. We may run away from a gangster, and police run towards the gangsters. That's the way the world works.
But isn't
I
that
don't believe
profiling?
Okay, it's profiling, but it's based on psychology. If you want to actually change behavior,
You're justifying.
Well, can I?
Go ahead.
It's a based on psychology. You're comparing adults to babies. The concept of molding a baby to an adult who's lived life. That's poor psychology, if you ask me. Because how can you make a point about what a baby does to what an adult does to someone?
No,
do you know what I mean? So it's like you
but
can't.
I can because that
You
characteristic.
can't because you grow, you learn, right? And
No.
you learn things. You don't grow and learn. You said no.
The answer to your question is no. There's some intrinsic characteristics in neuropsychology that don't change. For example, the way the aperture of your eye takes in light and information, the mechanics of how you interpret information never change. As I stated in my earlier premise, the entries to how it comes in and the way that you then, what we call ex post facto reasoning or after the fact reasoning, you change the analysis, that changes. But the mechanism whereby I mentioned modeling, that doesn't change. You may know better, but the instinctual, or as you say, your gut value system that you use is with you innately.
So
from
you can
birth.
know better, but you can't do better. There's an excuse to never do better.
The innate
So if
way
I
that
see
we
you,
do
like-
judgment is still based the
I
same
disagree.
way. No,
I disagree.
okay, but
I'm going to tell you. You can tell
I'm
me all
stating
the
a fact. I'm not-
That's
it's not-
fine.
okay.
You can state facts all day. The problem with everyone in their professional opinion, you can be an educated dummy. That's possible. Not to call you that, but these people who run around stating facts and all these studies, right? There is a such thing as an educated dummy because you're so caught on what these facts are that you can't learn and grow and learn to accept people. That would, by that concept alone, I could always see you two as terrorists.
Okay,
And that's
fair
not okay.
No, but it is okay.
I could be here with two
It is
terrorists.
okay. No,
This
no.
camera could be here
No, no,
with
actually
a bag
that-
over my head and a knife to my throat. By that concept.
See, actually, no. What you're saying is true, actually, and I
Yeah.
agree with you. And let me tell you why. You see, factually, the statement that you're making is you initially may judge a circumstance, and then you know better and you self-correct, which is exactly how it works. For you to
But you didn't say
argue-
that at first.
Yeah, maybe I'm not communicating, but that's the concept. I said the modality in which we use modeling is still there. The entries change. It means you still see it on your gut level value system. Immediately, that's how you
Exactly.
judge it. Then you come back and you say,
disagree.
"Oh, I." Okay.
Well, what he's saying is, let me explain. What he's saying is, because this, I was disagreeing with him till this end. He was saying that, for example, if you see, okay, this happened to Magic Johnson and Arsenio Hall. I don't know if you heard the story. They're in an elevator, a white lady gets in, and she's terrified of them because there's two black guys in the elevator, and she doesn't know who they are. And afterwards, they give her some roses or whatever, and they realize who she was. And so it was like the self-correction that he's talking about. In other words, you look at a group of kids, okay, a group of young African American or Hispanic pants down, bandana, you know what I'm saying, bulge in the pocket. You're thinking, okay, they're packing whatever, and they're approaching you, right? Now they could be approaching you to ask for directions or approaching you to kill you, whatever that is. What he's saying, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is that based on what society is, we talked about that last week, where we talking about you view stuff on TV and that becomes your north. That this is how things are supposed to be. So you believe that to be the reality, and then you have to self-adjust. So you see these guys coming towards you, how are you going to react? Okay, you're looking at them, you're thinking they're terrorists, because listen, there's some 5 Middle Easterners with a thing and they're coming to you, like have you seen the experiment on YouTube? The guy runs in and he throws the bag and he runs away and people are just running, and it's just, he's just throwing a backpack in a restaurant and running, and people are running out of their mind because they're thinking it's going to go off. So, now that's an extreme, I would probably run too. I'm not going to sit there and look at the backpack.
Right.
But let's go a step back. It's happened on the plane. The guy comes in, he's looking Middle Eastern, he's having a beard, maybe he's even wearing a turban or whatever, and he's judged on that. So what Al is saying is that you have predestined thoughts that you've grown up with.
Correct.
That you have no choice, because the gut level value systems are taught to you by the time you're 12 years old by people that you have no control to choose for the most part, i.e. your parents and what they allow you to be exposed to, right? What you're saying is absolutely right. The self-adjustment comes into where now you realize just because these 4 guys are walking toward me and they look a certain way, they're not meaning to harm me per se.
So we both agree with each other.
Absolutely.
You both, that's what I'm saying.
But we both agree with each other. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't make it okay when you're an adult. That's all I'm trying to say, is at some point, like, for instance, I have a good friend that's a cop. He's Secret Service. He's black.
Okay.
And when I talk to him about this very same thing, granted, he's not a scholar like you guys. We talk about the same thing. I said, man, look, every time I see a cop, I'm getting scared now. He said, Cliff, you can't do that, man. I said, why not? He said, because it's the same thing that you feel when, same analogy you use, when a white lady clutch her purse when you walk past.
Exactly.
And I said, you're right. I have to do better.
Exactly.
So all that I'm trying to say is, when it comes to the profiling situations, and when it comes to these things, you can't, when I first met you, you seemed like an asshole. Exactly. But I knew better. I don't know what this guy's going through. I don't know who he is. I don't know what happened to him before he walked in this room.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You're a great fucking guy.
Appreciate it.
That's from me learning. You know what I mean?
He was noticing the alpha male. I understand.
And
it was an alpha male situation. Yeah.
And I get that. And I'm okay with letting men do their macho thing. That's what we do.
But I wasn't.
You weren't. I just thought you were an asshole. My issue.
It's all good.
My issue.
Sometimes your first feeling is exactly the right thing.
See, so
don't second guess yourself.
And you don't want him to know what he thought of you when you walk in. Actually told me.
So all I'm trying to say is this: at some point, when we're adults, why are we still arguing what happens to you when you're a child? When we're speaking about living, breathing, walking, talking to fucking adults, you cannot keep running around judging people because their pants are down.
But what he's saying is they are.
And I agree. It's funny, you mentioned that. I wrote in the script one that I just wrote, a town hall meeting where a woman says to a cop, the media keeps portraying pictures of black youth as thugs and criminals. And the officer says, well, we can't paint a picture unless they pose for it. We can't take the picture. This is what they're doing. I can agree with you to that due to the simple fact there are some people that need to be off the street. I'm not the dude that's going to sit here and be like, oh, everybody in the neighborhood is good. It's some people there. They don't need to be on the streets. They need to be locked up. The problem is within the police force in the inner cities, the police aren't doing their job, which is why the Department of Justice had to crack down in Ferguson, because they were locking up people with traffic offenses. Meanwhile, you got these big drug dealers just walking the street free. There's some cats that need to be locked up.
Exactly. There is stuff that you're talking about is 100%. There are gray areas and there are political agendas like the drug dealers. Why is the drug dealers not being locked up? Simply because maybe they're paying people off. And there's a lot of different stuff that's happening behind the scenes that, you always laugh. I'm all the way conspiracy theorist. He's not.
Okay. No, it's just that, not that that doesn't happen. And I know that there's always a percentage of bad within any kind of an organization, whether it be a criminal organization or a group that's anti-criminal. But to believe that 100% of it is bad and every cop is
Who
on
said
the
100%?
and that is such a rampant
Who
thing.
said 100%?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying for the people who believe in
there's-
some kind of a blanket security.
Listen, there is good and bad in everything.
Correct.
There's
Yeah.
good and bad in everything. There are those kids that are riding, they're looking for trouble,
Yeah.
they're gonna get out, they're gonna knock you out. I went with those people to school.
Yeah.
That these guys would walk down the street random, and if you look weak, they would beat you up.
And the fact is, the same policing that the white neighborhoods get, trust me, the black people want the same policing. The black people don't dislike police. We want them, but we want them to patrol and get the people that needs to be off the street.
I look for solutions.
Mhm.
Okay. So far, I've heard a lot of complaints. Here's the problem in our society.
Mhm.
I do not believe that just in the next 1 to 2 weeks or even in the next year, any of us are going to go out there and actually change the entire system and change the minds of every single person, and racism is going to go away.
Okay.
You know, Martin
So
Luther.
what-
Listen to me. Listen. We've tried. We've tried. There's been a rights movement, the civil rights movement. It hasn't happened. Okay, it's gotten a lot better, but to believe that you're just going to talk about it and within a year or two it's going to change, I think it's naive. I think that, again, when we're looking in medicine, we don't necessarily try to go out and cure the cold, although there's a new kind of a formula out that is going to actually attempt to do that. We cure the symptoms. That's a lot easier. So we try to find a way to control not feeling bad from having the disease. So if I want to control the symptoms, I do certain things not to be profiled. I don't go out there wearing a turban and grow some kind of a terrorist beard and then expect for people to treat me normally and not to look at me.
I cannot believe you're saying that.
Yeah,
It's
because
ridiculous.
it's symptomology. I cannot to believe that I should
Why are you
walk
going
out
off
and
the? Can you
why I
keep-
should go I should walk out
just because he's black,
and
you're going away from him,
instigate
get closer, my friend.
this kind of thing to somehow make a difference.
I know that there is not a
is
prejudice going in
irrational.
your body. That's
It's
why I know you're
irrational.
not speaking from a prejudice
No, I'm
perspective. But the
talking
bottom
about
line from a science,
symptomology.
exactly. The
The
point is, all these
symptomology of psychology is that if you look
all
a
these
certain way, you're going to be
ologies,
judged a
all
certain
these
way. You can't
ologies.
change the way that people think just but for
Yes.
you to believe different.
All
It
these-
takes time, a very long time. Go ahead.
Well, also, we gotta stop thinking that in order to be racially profiled as a black man, that you have to have your pants down.
exactly not necessarily.
There's no
No.
economic like
No.
cap to that. Okay,
No.
it doesn't matter. Okay, you could just be black. You could be in a BMW while you're in that
Oh,
car.
absolutely.
Okay, it happens. Now,
but the percentage
what
is
you
much less, isn't
Well,
it?
the big
Wouldn't you agree
scene,
with that,
the big
Cliff?
scene in OJ.
Hold
OJ
on.
Made in America. Johnny Cochran actually portrayed that he was stopped when he was the assistant DA
It
in
happens.
this city
Again, it happens.
in a Mercedes Benz.
It happens, but it doesn't happen as much because it doesn't make sense. And please, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to appeal to your common sense. Do you really believe that if you take 10 black men, throw them out just in a metropolitan area, one is dressed very well, suit and tie, in a nice car, Cliff, and the other one is dressed like a gangster in a gangster car, and we all know what that looks like. Do you believe that the probability of being pulled over is going to be equal across the board?
Well, first of all, you said appeal to my common sense.
Correct.
It's not my common sense. Common sense is just common sense. So we can appeal to common sense in general. Okay. Whether one person would be pulled over quicker than the other person, the probability of it, yeah, because we know there's ignorance out there. We know there's ignorance out there. That's the problem. Okay, we can talk about that all day. That's the problem. For instance, the other day, again, this is something that I do with my life. I've been through a lot, okay? I've made a lot of mistakes. I make sure that every day I do a self-check. Did you do this? Did you say this right? Did you da 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 da? That's the those are the symptoms. Those are the symptoms that we should be, controlling instead of the prejudice ones and how we, instead of conforming for someone else. If you live your life for someone else, you'll forever be a slave. You're talking to somebody that's black. You know what I mean? You can't talk about conforming constantly, especially to someone black or even someone of color. That's just not the way to do it. What we should do is constantly, every day, self-check ourselves to not judge people, not to wonder, oh, am I gonna be judged? It's you. I think you have it backwards.
I don't understand. I asked you, 10 people go out. I just want to hear you. Do you believe it's equal? Yes or no?
The answer is
I
no.
did answer you.
He said at the beginning.
I
no.
did answer.
So
There's
then
no-
they
no.
will.
I
they will
said
choose.
because of ignorance, though.
Because
Exactly.
okay, fine, but
Yeah.
you
Now,
can't change that
here's-
ignorance.
here's-
You can
It
change the
is.
ignorance.
You
But
can't
what-
change it within
listen,
within
you-
one
but
year
hold
period
on,
of time.
hold
You're
on,
not
You
gonna
can, but you
change
can
it. In a
change
year
it.
period of
What
time.
we can do, and ask Clifford to stick around for us to do another program with him immediately following this, which you can see tomorrow in the same YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching this program, and we do invite you to stay tuned to watch tomorrow evening's program, because we do believe we're just hitting on topics and that are important and are happening in this country. When we come back, we will discuss, can that change? This is an interesting diatribe between all parties today.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.